Now, former Chief Justice David Maraga says President Uhuru Kenyatta should have been impeached by now for disobeying court orders and, in effect, violating the Constitution he swore to protect. In a candid interview with Citizen TV's Joe Ageo, Maraga opens up on a wide range of issues, from the Supreme Court's move to throw out the August 2017 presidential result to his administrative tasks as head of the third arm of government, the Judiciary. Here now is part one of that interview.
Hello and welcome to our interview, the first with the Honorable retired Chief Justice, immediate former Chief Justice. He was the second Chief Justice under the new constitution in the Republic of Kenya. It's been 2-3 days since you left the judiciary after what many people actually said was a very eventful 4 years as the head of that institution. How would you describe your tenure there as the Chief Justice and the President of the Judiciary?
The tenure was interesting, I would say. A few things happened, and we did what we could do. As far as I'm concerned, it was a good tenure. It gave me an opportunity to serve the Kenyan people, and I did my best.
We saw you many times complain, really, sometimes very publicly, about what was going on in the judiciary, particularly the treatment of the judiciary, sometimes by the executive, sometimes by parliament. Could you paint a picture of what your frustration could have been?
I swore to serve the Kenyan people. My allegiance is to the Kenyan people. The Kenyan people needed to know why I am not discharging my duties as they expected me to discharge them. So that's why I mean that is like a last resort kind of situation that you need the Kenyan people to know.
What exactly was happening, or what exactly was not happening, that made it difficult for you to do the things that you desired as the Chief Justice?
Most of my complaints were on the funding of the judiciary. Come to think about, you know, like funding is a very, very important aspect of judicial independence. If you don't have, if the judiciary has no funds, it cannot operate properly. And it will be at the mercy of the other arms of government, really. And this is what informed the provisions of Article 173, which establishes the judiciary fund and directs that as soon as the judiciary budget is approved, the entire judiciary budget should be posted in the judiciary fund account so that the judiciary is able to run that. It is the judiciary is the only institution the Constitution gives that kind of, if you want to call it, exception.
And this never happened?
It has not happened. And it is for good reason. The judiciary decides cases against the government, against the executive, against the legislature. And of course, some of those decisions don't please those people against whom they are made. And they will not tell you that we are not giving you funds. They will quietly frustrate you and you don't get the funds and move on, so that you are seen to fail.
Did you get the sense that this was deliberate, that is actually what they were trying to do?
Yes, yes. And when I say that, let nobody misunderstand me to think that, I expected to be given 100 billion, for example. I know that the limitations that there are. We are not a very rich country. But when you consider the consideration of the whole budget, you can see that you're being frustrated. The amount you are being given is inadequate, completely inadequate, and that is a frustration.
Now, one of the more momentous and I think the most famous decision you had to preside over was the presidential petition in 2017, which led to the nullification of presidential election, the first ever in Africa. And I think from what I was told, only the fourth in the whole world. How significant was that decision, the weight of it, for you as the person who led the bench at that critical time in our history?
Joe, what ran in my head at that time is here is a petition, and you know, you look at the history of this country. Look at the history of this country. Look at what happened in 2007. The judiciary was blamed that it is not independent, it is not listening to the complaints raised by opposition or petitioners. So what was in my mind at that time is, this is important. We've got to be very, very careful, make sure we do the right thing, so that we don't plunge the country into chaos, as happened in 2007.
But that may not have been easy, bringing that level of understanding to the entire bench, because I would imagine it fell on you to do that, to talk to your colleagues and, basically look at the weight of this and how important it was for the country.
Joe, when we sat to discuss, or even long before the case was filed, sometimes in the course of discussing with your colleagues, you say, look, we are likely to have a petition like this. This is a matter we need to consider. I would say that all the judges, not only myself, all the judges understood the obligation, understood what the country required of them. It is not anything like I would say that it only fell upon me. No, the judges understood the importance of the matter, even without telling anybody. And when we started, we said, look, here we are. The petition has come. Let us deal with it. And I even remember we prayed and said, look, let us deal with it and deal with it properly.
Did you at some point during that, fear for yourself, for your life, for your security?
I would not say that I really feared. I don't know. I had the feeling that even now, I have the feeling that when you do what is right, it will take a very drastic action for somebody to want to harm you for doing what is right. So, that really didn't worry me much myself, as far as I'm concerned. It didn't worry me much. The worries came when, after the decision, and when you see people making comments and say, look, what is all this?
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But tell me, did you have any special precautions you had to take to make sure that there was no interference from external sources, that the decisions you made were truly independent? The
only precaution we took is that we went to a place where we thought nobody would know where we are. The simple reason is that you don't want people to begin asking you what you are doing. Is
there any particular thing that you would say swayed the decision, that when this came to your realization, you would say, this is it? And what lawyers would call a key pillar of the ratio decidendi, something that was so important in this that there was just no other way that this was going to go once you got to see that?
Yes. Article 86 of the Constitution requires the election to be simple, accurate, verifiable, and transparent. So those are that is the criteria upon which you have got to weigh the evidence that has been presented. The allegations were this election was not verifiable. That particular one was critical, and the verifiability arose from the failure to do or to carry out simultaneous electronic transmission of results from the polling stations to the centers, the constituency centers and the national census. You recall there was an application requiring scrutiny, and we made an order that they get the servers, open the servers, because IBC was saying yes, we transmitted, but the other party was saying no, you didn't. So for the court to verify, it says, look, bring the servers, open them, and let us see. The experts are here. Let us see whether or not you did what you were required to do. They didn't do that. Yeah. And that left the court with no option whatsoever. Remember, an election is not an event. An election is a process. If the saying that it just should be done and be seen to be done is applicable anywhere, it is applicable in elections more than anything else. It is applicable. So that even the person who loses is shown that you lost rightly. When he makes noise out here, even the public will tell him, look, but you only got 10 votes, what are you talking about? So that it doesn't come round and begin claiming, no, I got 100, yeah, but I was only given 10. I mean, he is asked to prove how you got 100 when the records show you got 10. So it is important that an election is transparent, verifiable, and open.
Okay, so you come to this point where after doing the conferencing, after reviewing the evidence, and now you have had your conference, and it is clear that this is going to be the nullification of an election, a big thing, monumental by any definition. What is going on in your mind?
What is going on in my mind is that, look, this is going to be made by an uproar by those who lose. This is going to be met by jubilation by those who win. But Joe, if you have to be true to your oath of office and knowing the responsibility on your shoulders, that should tell you that here you are, this is the moment when you have to decide to do what you are required to do by the Constitution. Yes, there was anxiety, but there is that determination that you have got to make. And you know, judges, I mean, after all is said and done, there's a time you remain alone. You have to make a decision yourself. You can't be aided by anybody else. So that was there, and we knew it was a big thing. But that's what the Supreme Court is set up. But that's the fundamental function the Supreme Court is set up to decide. Because these petitions come, and there must be a court to decide that. There must be individuals who have to weigh the evidence and determine the case. So yes, it was an anxious moment. But I think we reflected, for me as an individual, I reflected over it, prayed over it, and made the decision on what I thought was right on the evidence presented before us and the law.
Apart from just how huge this was historically and the jurisprudential weight that it has, what would you say the impact of that decision was and is going to be in how elections are managed in this country, perhaps even in other jurisdictions that might want to borrow what happened here?
What, in my view, the importance of the decision is that there are procedures, there are processes to be followed in an election. These processes are important, and you have got to carry them out as the law requires. If you don't, I mean, for IBC, if the IBC doesn't, it risks the petition, I mean, the election being set aside. And it is in the interest of the candidates especially to also ensure that they do the right thing, so that your victory is not set aside for perhaps something which would have not warranted that.
After that, there was a lot of reactions, as you indicated. Some said wakora, but then there was that one of revisiting, and it became the most famous because after that we saw many things happen in the judiciary which were not favorable. So do you, from where you sit, looking back at that entire period, do you think that that revisiting statement had anything to do with what became of the judiciary after that?
Yes, when the president made that statement, immediately what came to my mind immediately is this is a statement made in the spur of the moment. You will recall I even invited the president, and they graciously attended the judiciary function. We call it SOJA, judiciary, State of the Judiciary address, and they came, and he said as much actually. And as far as I was concerned, that was it. But subsequently, when you see some things, and you know nobody will tell you we are doing this because you nullified the election. The kind of things that you see later on, you say, wait a minute, this would ordinarily not be done. Let me give you one example. The judiciary budget has what we call a development vote. The development vote was normally about 1-2 billion shillings per year. What followed the what? After that, we were given 50 million shillings. Out of 2 billion shillings, we were given 50 million. That's when you ask yourself, what is not happening here? Yeah, so you would, and of course, other things that happen, I mean, the cold kind of reception you are getting, the kind of treatment you are getting, you realize it is because of that decision.
But did you have a relationship with him? Like, would you call him? Was there any kind of communication? It would just be letters or anything? Was there any working relationship between you as the head of the judiciary and the president as head of the executive and the country?
Before the decision, there was communication. I would call cordial communication. Things here, there. There is like one time, I believe. We discussed with the president. The president was concerned about the injunctions stopping the government from carrying out some development projects, and we discussed it. And actually, in my view, the president understood where we were coming from. The tendering process for those projects were improper. Were improper, and I pointed it out to the president that, look, some of these are done by your own people who are using proxies. When they do the wrong thing, you don't expect us to approve that. We know you have to carry out some of these projects within a given time. Rain on your people and make sure that this is not happening. And we had a very good discussion and left it at that. But after that decision, the discussions became rare and to a point that you are not even communicating.